In today's video, we're looking at the Sony FDR AX53. This camera was introduced in 2016. It features 4K resolution, well actually Ultra HD. Let me explain. DCI, the Digital Cinema Initiatives, defines 4K as 4096 by 2160, whereas the International Telecommunications Union defines it as Ultra HD, also known as 4K, at 3840 by 2160. Confusing? Don't worry. The difference between these two formats is minimal. And besides, in the consumer market, anything that's labeled 4K is going to be 3840 by 2160. Before opening the box to see what's inside, I'm going to switch my Samsung camera over to 4K or Ultra HD. So that way, not only can you view this in 4K, but you'll also be able to view the files that the Sony generates that are also Ultra HD. Now, despite this being introduced many years ago, they're in short supply and they're more expensive than when they originally were sold. We have a way of getting a prepaid Visa, but it looks like this expired back in March of 21. We have accessories that you can look at. Then we have a warranty guide, a manual in multiple languages, information on the battery, an English manual, not very thick. There's also stuff online that you can get. And then inside, what do we have here? We have a HDMI cord. We have a USB to a micro USB. We have a power cord, non-polarized. And that probably goes to what? The adapter that plugs into the camera. So you don't get an individual charger for the battery, which is buried in here. Here's the battery. So they don't have something that you slide into to charge this. This basically has to sit in the camera in order to be charged. There are, of course, accessories that you can buy where you can charge this off camera. And now we get to the physical camera. And let's move this cardboard out of the way. Voila. Here is the Sony. It has a 20 times optical, which is really nice. A shutter that closes in front to protect the lens. Built-in microphone. Button here, manual. When you push that button, you can actually turn this ring so that you can change whether you want to operate the aperture, the focus, the zoom. We'll see later some of that stuff. Coming along the side, there's our 4K symbol. This opens up. It's a viewfinder that can flip all the way to the other side. Anytime you open this up, the unit will power on. Inside, we have a place for the SD card. So that slots into there. Then closes off. We have a place here for the HDMI cable. During 4K shooting, there is no HDMI output. Next to that is a standby power button. So again, when you open this, it turns on. If you pull this viewfinder, it also turns on. But this just puts it in a standby mode. Then you have night shot. If you want to shoot stuff at night, there's a little infrared light that projects from the front. We have playback mode. So you've shot something, you want to watch it. There's a button for that. And then up here, there's a button that allows you to, let me change the lighting on this, hold on. This is a little bit better as far as lighting goes. Okay, where were we? So up on top, there's a button here that allows you to attenuate the audio from the person that's operating the camera. So if you're back here and you like talking or giving instructions, supposedly that will cancel out your voice so that we don't hear the camera operator talking. We'll give that a test. This is a test of the noise canceling capability of the microphone. I am now behind the microphone in the operator position, and it should be canceling my voice. Now I'm towards the front of the lens, and you should be able to hear me clearly. A built-in speaker allows you to monitor playback and can be adjusted from the menu. Battery goes back here, it slides up. You're not stuck with just this small battery. There are optional other batteries that you can get that have larger capacity. We have a viewfinder that you can look through. You just pull out, it goes up. One of the nice things about this is that on the side here, you can actually set focus so that if you're nearsighted or farsighted, that'll help you out. Up on top, if you want, you can take stills. I guess I could take stills as reference shots for stuff, but this would not be the camera I would use to take still pictures with. Then you have a rocker for going wide or telephoto with the lens. Coming around to the right-hand side, we have an indicator that lets you know when the unit is charging and the power's on. Then you have a start-stop button. Below that is a little door that opens down. This will probably break off at some point. It really should come all the way down or be held by something, but it opens up. That's where you plug in your power. You can either run the camera with external power or you can charge the battery. Can you do both? I don't think so, but we'll check about that. Over on the right-hand side, there's a slide drawer, and there it will let you plug in the multi-cable, and you can also plug your microphone in there. And then we have for holding our grip here, and this can be adjusted. It's got a little hoop and loop for that. Coming towards the front of the camera, there's a place here, another little hidden door that'll probably break off. And this hidden door holds the headphone jack. So you can plug in a little mini plug. Then we come around to the front. There'll be a tally for when you're recording. And this is where the infrared light will emit from. And that concludes, I guess there's one more thing. If you want to mount this on a tripod, there's the threads for it. Unfortunately, they're towards the front of the camera as opposed to being in the middle. So that creates an odd balance. That's all the external features for this device. And we'll take a closer look. But the first thing we're going to have to do is put in the battery and charge them. To mount the battery, we get the side with the pins going up. You'll see pins on the camera itself. And there's some notches. You get almost to the top. And then it should just go in and lock into place. To release, you pull on this switch and you pull the battery down and it releases. And again, just slightly below the top and it should catch. And then it locks into place. And now we're ready to open our little DC compartment, grab our charging cable, which only fits one way. There's a little arrow right there, and that goes up and it goes in, and then you'll get power indication that the unit is charging. Now let's see if we can answer our first basic question. Can we power the unit and charge at the same time? And it looks like we're just powering the camera. and not charging because it's gone green. It's not flashing yellow and green. So at this point, we can start configuring the camera, and we get to choose the language. It's a touch screen. So once you pick your language, you hit next. Then we pick the region of the country we're in, so we can set the time. So it'll automatically timestamp your files. We're going to pick East Coast. And there's no daylight savings at the moment because we're in winter. So that's off. And then we're going to set how we want the year, month, and day to display. And we're going to go with the English version on that. And then you just continue following the prompts until you've filled in the date and time information. When you finish with date and time, it gives you a prompt for downloading software for your smartphone or for your computer, QRT code, actual web address. And now we're looking through the camera. Various things come up on the screen. We'll go through each one of those shortly. Just want you to know that anytime the camera's on, you can see that the lens is exposed. And you may notice that when I go like this, there's a lag because there's a gimbal, a 5-axis gimbal inside this, which will supposedly smooth out the shots. Here's the initial main screen, and one of the things you're going to do is go to Menu, Setup, and scroll up and down until you get to Version, and then you want to make sure that you're on version 1.02. That's the latest version that Sony has for this camera. Ours came correct with the correct firmware already installed, so that's not an issue. And you can hit the X again, and that takes you out to the main screen. Each time the A53 is powered up, the LCD display briefly shows us the status of the unit before switching to a more simplified display. Exploring the more detailed page, we see that starting top dead center, we have a standby mode that lets you know that the camera is not recording. To the left of that is a menu button, and because it's shadowed, that means you can actually touch it and step into the menus of the camera. Below that, we see 4K, so the camera is set for 4K shooting. To the right of that is the letter N. That is for near field communications. There's also Wi-Fi that's available so you can communicate with other devices. Coming down, we see that the steady shot is in standard mode. There's also active mode and off mode. Going down, we see a palette that's in the off mode. That means there's no electronic colorization or effects being applied to the image. To the right of that, we see that our adjustment ring is in the zoom mode. And finally, at the bottom is the play function that is also a touch feature and allows you playback access to everything that's been recorded. Going over to the top right-hand side, we see a counter indicating either time code or time elapsed of shot footage. Below that is how much time is left on your storage card. We see that we are shooting in 4K, 30 frames progressive, and the bit rate is at 60. And below that, we see that we are storing onto the SD card. Continuing downwards, the mode we're in is the movie mode. The other mode would be photo mode. And below that is the indication either for the 2-channel recording or 5-channel surround sound, and you would see level indications along each of those axes. And finally, on the lower right-hand side is iAuto or Intelligent Auto, and that's where the camera can decide on the best settings for the subject that's being shot. Going to the simplified mode, we see we have a choice of accessing the menu. We can touch to go wide, touch to zoom in with the telephoto, or to record or stop record with the red button. Before any images can be acquired with this camera, you'll need an SD card. Make sure it is the right type of card for HD. You'll need to look for the 3 and 10 symbols. And to insert this card, we simply slide open the door. The corner that's cut will face down and it'll slide in. And then you'll give it a slight push and it'll stay in there. Make sure to close the door. While the card we inserted is brand new, if you're repurposing a card, then you want to make sure you go into Menu, Setup, Format, Memory Card, and then it'll ask Execute. All the data will be deleted when format is processed. And it tells you it's going to take about 13 seconds. So if it's a card that you're repurposing, make sure there's nothing on it that you want, and then proceed. Once it's done, you get a completed message. Hit OK, X, and you are ready to record. We already know that this Sony camera can record in 2 HD formats, Full HD 1920 by 1080, and then Ultra HD, which is 3840 by 2160. But for comparison, I wanted to show you Standard HD, which is 1280 by 1070 on this 4K monitor without any scaling. This gives you a better idea of how much information is available from Standard HD, shifting over to Full HD, and finally, Ultra HD. You might be thinking, wait, my television doesn't do that. You're right. Your television will automatically scale up the image to fill the raster of the frame. Therefore, even if you're watching a 1280 by 720 image, it will fill the screen for you. We can simulate the scaling that takes place on your TV by taking this standard def image here and scaling it up to Ultra HD. Prior to any shooting, we're going to explore the manual ring settings. Simply press the manual button and hold. You'll get a menu on the LCD panel. Use the ring to select zoom and then press manual again. Now you can control the zoom function. So that's all done manually. Of course, the problem can be sometimes that you get your finger in front of the lens. I actually prefer just using the electronic zoom in and zoom out, which is also available while you're in this manual mode. The next mode is manual focus. So right now the camera is focused on the gumballs, but we can shift this focus closer to us, throwing everything out of focus, or by turning it the other way, we can bring the background behind the gumball machines into focus. We've now switched over to manual exposure, and as you can see, I can dim or brighten the scene by adjusting the exposure level via the ring. And that focus occurred automatically on its own because you can only make one thing manual, and in our case, once we made the exposure control manual, the gumballs came into focus because that was an auto function. As soon as I switched over from exposure to iris, the camera automatically adjusted. So now we're looking at an f-stop of 3.9, and when I bring the f-stop to f11, you can see a little bit of change in the depth of field, and that's what you're basically going to get with this adjustment, unlike exposure, which is more of a gain function. We switched over to shutter speed, which is best illustrated by just some motion going on. Right now we're at 250, and if I bring that down to say 8, you can see that there is a blurring. That is now the frame rate. And if I step it up to 3000, now I will probably pause this video and you can see that you can get a more detailed snapshot. So it can be good when you want to do some motion. But if you want to make things blur out, you can definitely do that by dropping it down. The AE gives you an exposure override. And basically, it just, if you don't like the automatic gain control on it, you can set down to a -1 or up to a +1. So maybe you like things a little bit overexposed over what the camera is picking for you, or slightly under. That's the function of AE. Now we're in white balance shift, and that lets you shift the color temperature, a +4 to a -4, and it'll go a little warmer to a little cooler. So if you want your color temperature, again, the problem with using this ring is your finger can get in the way, but as you see here, here's a little cooler, and here's a little warmer. This is not to be confused with the white balance controls under camera mode, in which you have automatic white balance. You have daylight preset white balance, and then you have an indoor preset for white balance, and then there's one where you can actually just set the white to a value using a white or gray chart. And then you use the one step, and it will make this card that I'm holding look neutral as it white balances. Unfortunately, I can't record that process, but as you see, the card has gone from blue to a white, and now our picture has been adjusted not to the sunlit area back there, but to the shadowed area that we're in, which is a much bluer. So you'll notice that the color intensity has changed, and if I flip this back over to auto white balance, you'll see a difference in color as the camera makes the best setting for the color temperature. And those are all the functions that you can do with the front ring. And of course, when you're done, you can actually go into the settings and tell it to reset everything, and it goes back to a fully automatic mode. Once you're done videotaping, there are two ways of getting your files into a computer. One, you physically remove the SD card, insert the SD card into a card reader. The second method is to use the provided USB to micro cable. Open the side door, plug in your cable, and then insert the short end of this cable into your computer. Regardless of the method you choose for importing your files, you'll get a Windows Explorer. Inside there, you'll see the card. You can open up the card, and now you have to figure out which folder it's in, or you could just use Play Memories Home, which is available free from Sony, and that program actually lets you just import the media that you need, and it imports it at a much faster speed than you can through Windows. Once on your computer, you can move them into your favorite editing software. Now let's take a look at some of the video output from this camera. The built-in 20 optical zoom is best illustrated by showing something up close and then pulling out. A question many of you may be asking is, why buy a 2016 model camera that has not been upgraded since its introduction? Before we can answer that, let's look at what this camera is not. This is not a pro camera. It's not even a pro consumer camera. It's a high-end consumer camera, but at this price point, you're not going to get a large sensor. It's only 0.4 inches, and you're not going to get a lot of manual controls. There's no 4K HDMI output during recording. The adjustment ring only limits you to one manual setting. The camera body seems fragile with lots of little doors that are eventually going to break off with usage, and Sony didn't include a travel charger. What this camera is a consumer, compact-sized unit that can produce acceptable 4K images, has a rear viewfinder with eye focus, programmable timecode and user bit, some limited manual controls via the adjustment ring, a variable speed zoom that can go out to 20x, SD card storage, a steady shot system that works. It can accept an external mic and lens filters. Audio can be monitored. Some of the camera functions can be controlled via an external Sony app. The battery can be charged through the camera using the AC adapter or the slower USB. And Sony provides free software for basic file management and editing. Currently, this camera retails for $1098, which puts it kind of close to the Blackmagic 4K, which is $1295, but you have to remember that comes without a lens. So if you're looking for a 35 to 100 millimeter lens, that's going to cost you almost $1,000, which puts you into a higher category than this camera will. And of course, you can always go with the FDR AX53A, which retails for about $949, the difference being that the A43 does not include a rear viewfinder. Getting back to the original question, the reason I bought this A53 is because of its small size, its great image quality, some access to manual controls, and mostly its steady shot 20x optical zoom lens. These features will provide more versatility than my current Samsung phone. If you found this video interesting or useful, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.